Hi, and welcome to Progressive Short Takes. I'm your host, Joe Firestone. In this short take, I want to talk about Amy Coney Barrett and whether she's going to become the most radical right supreme. I certainly hope not. There was a discussion of this on Truth Out a few days ago by Marjorie Cohn. I'm going to share that article with you now. Okay, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but this particular passage in this article, let me find it. So, when Amy Coney Barrett was questioned by the Judiciary Committee, she refused to say that voter intimidation, is illegal, that armed poll watchers are intimidating, that voter discrimination exists. She refused to say whether the president was able to deny someone the right to vote based on race, or that Congress has a constitutional duty to protect the right to vote. She refused to say that Medicare is constitutional. She was unable to tell us that married couples should not lose their right to contraceptives, or that a black worker repeatedly called the N word was subjected to a hostile work environment, that it's wrong to separate children from their parents at the border, or that marriage equality, the right to consensual gay sex, and LGBTQ workers' rights should be protected. Barrett would not say that human beings are responsible for climate change, or that the Constitution requires a peaceful transfer of power. Her answers and her refusals to answer confirm, says Marjorie Cohn, that she will be the most radical right-wing member of the court. Even Chief Justice John Roberts, who wrote the decision in Shelby County versus Holder, which struck down Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, noted, quote, voting discrimination still exists. No one doubts that. It seems like Amy Coney Barrett does, because she wouldn't say that it still exists. When Patrick Leahy asked the Barrett whether a president could refuse to comply with a court order, she refused to answer. Even Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch, quote, made it clear that a president cannot refuse to comply with a court order, and that the Supreme Court's word is the final word on that matter, unquote. But Leahy said to Barrett. Even Kavanaugh wrote in the Court of Appeals opinion that being called the N-word by a supervisor suffices by itself to establish a racially hostile work environment. Senator Cory Booker, Democrat of New Jersey, said to Barrett, So Barrett was asked whether she agreed with her mentor, Antonin Scalia's characterization of the Voting Rights Act as a perpetuation of racial entitlement, quote unquote, but she refused to answer. And Kristen Clarke, who's president and executive director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, said, quote, "This should sound an alarm for anyone in our country who cares about protecting voting rights for uh, uh, for um, but, um, but, um, but for all Americans." An Arizona case on the court's docket will test another anti-discrimination provision of the VRA, the Voting Rights Act, Section 2, which prohibits voting practices or procedures that discriminate on the basis of race. Quote, Clarke said to the committee, quote, "Given Judge Barrett's unwillingness to recognize the threats that Black people and communities of color face in voting, I'm deeply concerned about how she would handle this case and many other cases that will come before the court." Of course, we know that she is threatening the Affordable Care Act. She even refused to tell Senator Amy Klobuchar that she was aware Donald Trump had opposed the ACA before he nominated her. When Senator Harris, Kamala Harris, asked Barrett whether she had heard Trump's statement committing to nominate judges who would strike down the ACA, the judge replied, quote, "I don't recall hearing about or seeing such statements," unquote. And Marjorie Cohn asked, has Barrett been hiding under a rock, or is she lying? Question mark. I think she's got to be lying. On November 10th, the court will hear arguments in California versus Texas, which will determine the fate of the ACA. The Trump administration contends the entire ACA must fall. And Barrett has already written that John Roberts' 2012 opinion upholding the Affordable Care Act, quote, "pushed the Affordable Care Act beyond its plausible meaning to save the statute." So there's more. But note that a confirmation threatens racial justice and reproductive rights. And Booker asked Barrett, Cory Booker, what books or law review articles she's read about racial disparities in the criminal legal system. Barrett citing the sentencing guidelines, sentencing commission reports, and conversations she's had. Booker said, there are books on the bestseller list, including The Color of Law, Just Mercy, and The New Jim Crow, because, quote, people are seeking to know what the facts are. Booker said to Barrett that the war on drugs is a war on Black and brown people because of the outrageous disparities. He confronted her with a lengthy blog post she wrote questioning whether people sentenced under the racially discriminatory cocaine law should have their sentences adjusted by retroactively after the law was overturned. Booker noted that of the 20,000 people affected, 98% were Black or brown. He pointed out that Barrett never mentioned that prior law with its racially biased sentencing disparities for crack and powder cocaine disproportionately affecting Black people was unjust. When asked about the standard for overruling Supreme Court precedent, Barrett called Brown versus Board of Education, which held that, quote, separate but equal, unquote, schools had discriminated against Black children, a, quote, super precedent, unquote, that is precedent, that is so well established that it would be unthinkable that it would ever be overruled. But she refused to say that Roe v. Wade is also a super precedent because many people are trying to overturn it. That's not surprising, as she has signed a statement referring to Roe as, quote, barbaric, unquote, and as a, quote, raw exercise of judicial power, unquote. She also opposed access to contraception under the Affordable Care Act, calling it, quote, an assault on religious liberty. And the article goes through more and more. But Make no mistake, says Cohn, reproductive rights are on the line if Barrett joins the Supreme Court. How did Barrett actually get to the point of being on the court? Well, Sheldon Whitehouse made the case that it was dark money that propelled her to the court. And I've discussed that at length before, so I'm not going to repeat here. If she's confirmed to the court at age 48, she could serve for decades. She would create a 6-3 right-wing majority on the court. But if Democrats win both the presidency and the Senate, 2 of the 3 branches of government could check and balance the judicial ones. But I think I've said enough to indicate the answer to the question. What I believe is the answer to the question. Specifically, that answer is that, yes, she will be the most radical right person on the Supreme Court if she is confirmed. So we're getting to the last chance. Everybody has to call their senators and speak in no uncertain terms about how Amy Coney Barrett is unacceptable, and that if your senator votes for Amy Coney Barrett, that will be a deal breaker vote, and that you will support any primary challenge to them when they come up next time for election. And if your senator is one of those who is running for re-election right now, he or she has to be told in no uncertain terms that I will vote against you if you vote for Amy Coney Barrett, if you vote to confirm Amy Coney Barrett. If we possibly can, we've got to shake loose some of the Republican votes here and get 4 or 5 other people to join Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins in saying they will vote against Amy Coney Barrett when the confirmation vote comes up, which, by the way, is likely to be during the next 3 to 4 days. So be careful. I think it's currently scheduled for the 24th. That's the floor vote. So we have to watch for that. We have to warn senators. If they vote for her, they are toast. Absolutely toast. That's it.